Welcome to Wealth Hustle 247 podcast, your trusted guide to financial literacy, business innovation, and entrepreneurial success. Learn how to grow your wealth, make informed decisions, and turn your ideas into profitable ventures.
Welcome to today's podcast. We're talking about 15 ways to create generational wealth. Building wealth that lasts beyond your lifetime is a goal for many, but it requires smart planning and strategic moves. Join us as we explore actionable steps to secure financial stability for future generations.
Hey, listener name, you ready to go deep on this whole generational wealth thing?
I'm ready when you are.
All right, let's do it. This one's coming straight from you. You wanted us to unpack this alox.com video about building a legacy. And you know me, I love a good deep dive.
It's a popular one, too, for good reason. This is something a lot of people are thinking about.
Yeah, and I got to say, that stat in the video where only 1% of people are actually financially comfortable by 65, that one kind of hit me.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call for sure.
It makes you realize this isn't your typical get-rich-quick scheme, you know? This is about something way bigger.
Absolutely. It's about making your wealth mean something, making it last.
And then on top of that, they said something like 70% of wealthy families lose it all by the next generation.
It's heartbreaking, really. All that hard work, all that success, and then poof. Gone.
It's like that saying, short sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, right?
Exactly. It's been a challenge for as long as, well, wealth has existed.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to break this ancient curse or something.
Okay, so where do we even begin? The video seemed to make a big deal about the difference between personal wealth and, family wealth.
Right. It's a critical distinction. They had this really clever analogy. Imagine a trendy little coffee shop.
Right. Okay, I'm picturing it.
So your personal wealth, that's like owning the coffee shop. You can sell it, you can enjoy the profits, but it's pretty easy to spend it all.
I can see that. You blow it all on lattes.
Exactly. But family wealth, that's like owning the land that coffee shop sits on. Much harder to liquidate quickly, and it tends to appreciate in value over time.
So it's about building something with, like, staying power. It's not about that flash in the pan kind of wealth. It's about those assets that stand the test of time.
You got it. And that's where those 3 things the video talked about come in. Land, those cash flowing properties, and then, of course, the evergreens.
Yeah, those evergreen businesses, right. It's like we're talking Boeing, Hilton, Ford.
Yeah.
These are practically institutions. What makes them so special?
What's really interesting is they're not just writing some temporary trend. They're all about meeting these fundamental human needs. And those needs, they don't really go away generation to generation.
Okay, so they're tapping into something much deeper. But I'm still a little fuzzy on the whole cash flowing properties thing. Is it really as straightforward as it sounds?
Think of it like playing Monopoly, right? But in real life.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
So instead of just collecting rent on Boardwalk, we're talking about owning apartment buildings, commercial spaces.
Oh, I see.
They become these income-generating machines working for you and your kids and their kids.
Wow. I got to get myself a few more houses on this Monopoly board. But back to the evergreens. What's the secret sauce? How do they stay so relevant for so long?
Well, the video really hammered this point home. Innovation. It's not enough to inherit grandpa's successful business and just assume it'll keep going on autopilot.
So it's not enough to rest on your laurels. You got to keep evolving.
You've got to adapt, stay ahead of the curve, be ready to steer the ship in a whole new direction, if that's what it takes.
And speaking of navigating the long game, the video goes into the whole S&P 500 thing. And that's where they drop that Einstein quote, you know, the one about compound interest being the 8th wonder of the world.
Oh, yeah. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Classic.
But then they took this whole compounding thing beyond just like your investment portfolio, right?
It did. And that's where things get really fascinating.
Hold on. Are we saying that learning is like investing in the S&P 500? I'm not sure I follow that one.
It's the same principle just applied to knowledge. Every book you read, every skill you pick up, it's like you're making a deposit in this knowledge account, right?
Yeah.
That knowledge. It compounds over time, just like your money.
Okay, so you're saying that all those late-night Wikipedia rabbit holes are actually paying off.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Hey, knowledge is power, right? The more you learn, the better decisions you can make, and that, my friend, leads to better outcomes, financially and otherwise.
So we're not just talking about financial literacy here. It's about being a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Always curious, always expanding that knowledge base.
Exactly. It's about being a well-rounded investor in, well, yourself.
Okay, I'm definitely down with that. But the video also mentioned something called the buy, borrow, die strategy. And I'm not going to lie, that one sounds a little ominous.
It does have a certain ring to it, doesn't it? But it's not as scary as it sounds, I promise. It's really just about understanding leverage.
Leverage, huh? So, like, using other people's money to make money.
In a nutshell, yes.
Ah.
So instead of selling off assets like properties or investments to free up some capital, you borrow against them.
So you're essentially using those assets as collateral to access more funds. Funds you can then reinvest and grow even more.
You got it. It's a way to potentially amplify your returns and keep those assets working for you.
Okay, I see the appeal. But isn't that a pretty risky game to play?
It can be if you're not careful. The video made sure to stress that you got to do your homework, understand things like interest rates and taxes, and most importantly, know your own risk tolerance. This is where having a good financial advisor can really come in handy.
Right, someone to help you navigate all the complexities. And I'm assuming the die part of that catchy little phrase isn't just there for dramatic effect.
You know it. Estate planning is crucial. You don't want to spend your life building this legacy only to have it eaten up by taxes or legal fees when you're gone.
You want to make sure your wealth actually reaches the people you intended to.
Precisely. And that's where things like trusts, wills, and all that important stuff come into play.
Okay, so we've covered the buy, borrow, die strategy. Now let's talk about something a little less, well, morbid. The video seemed particularly interested in Bitcoin and its potential role in building generational wealth.
Yeah, and for good reason. It's not every day that a completely new asset class comes along, one that operates outside the traditional financial system.
Right. It's like, are we witnessing the future of money here, or is this whole thing going to go bust? It's hard to say.
It's definitely a wild ride. But even if you're skeptical about Bitcoin as a currency, it's hard to ignore the potential returns. I mean, they highlighted how the number of millionaires is growing rapidly, but the supply of Bitcoin, that's fixed, limited.
So basic economics tells you that as demand increases and supply stays the same, the price should, theoretically at least, go up.
Exactly. Of course, there's no guarantee with any investment, but it's a fascinating case study in how technology is disrupting traditional wealth-building strategies.
It's definitely not your grandpa's stock portfolio, though the video did mention some other alternatives, gold, silver, gemstones, even art. Do those still hold up in a digital world?
It's a good question. I mean, these things, they've been considered valuable for centuries, right? Tangible assets, a hedge against inflation, all that.
But in a world dominated by ones and zeros, do they still carry the same weight? I mean, we're already moving towards a cashless society in a lot of ways.
True, but there's still something to be said for having assets that you can, actually hold in your hand. There's a certain psychological comfort in that, I think.
It's like that old saying, you can't print more land. Although maybe in the metaverse you can. Who knows what the future holds? But, beyond all the specific investment strategies, the video kept coming back to something we've been touching on. The human side of generational wealth.
Yes. It's not just about the money, is it? It's about the values you pass down, the relationships you build, and the kind of impact you want to have on the world.
It's about building something that's bigger than yourself, something that outlives you.
Exactly. It's about creating a legacy, not just a fortune.
And that's where I think mentorship comes in, right? Like the video said, it's one thing to leave your kids a bunch of money, but it's another thing entirely to equip them to actually handle it responsibly.
100%. I mean, imagine inheriting $1 million without any understanding of how to manage it. You probably end up blowing it all in, I don't know, solid gold lattes at that trendy coffee shop we were talking about earlier.
Right. You'd be back to square one in no time.
Yeah.
So it's about more than just the inheritance. It's about instilling those core values. Hard work, delayed gratification.
Financial literacy.
Exactly. Giving them the tools and the knowledge to make their wealth work for them instead of the other way around.
It's about breaking that cycle, right? Ending that whole shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves thing.
For sure. And speaking of setting up future generations for success, the video also touched on using trusts as a way to protect wealth.
Trusts are interesting. They allow you to set some ground rules, some conditions on how and when your heirs can access that inheritance.
So it's like having a safety net in place, preventing those impulsive decisions that could derail their long-term financial well-being.
Exactly. You can structure it so they receive funds at certain milestones, like reaching a certain age, completing a degree, or even starting their own business.
So it's not just about handing them a blank check. It's about providing support while also encouraging responsibility.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that balance we've been talking about. You want to provide for your loved ones, but you don't want to create a sense of entitlement.
You want them to be driven, to have that fire in their belly that made you successful in the first place.
Exactly. And one concept the video highlighted that I found particularly interesting was the 5% withdrawal rule.
The what now?
The 5% withdrawal rule. So let's say you've got a nice little nest egg built up, $1 million, just for example.
Okay, I'm following. $1 million it is.
This rule says you should only withdraw a maximum of 5% of that each year, even if your investments are doing well and you technically have more to spend.
So you're living below your means, even when you don't technically have to.
Exactly. Because that remaining 95%, it's still working hard for you. It's compounding, growing, ensuring that your wealth lasts, well, hopefully, a lot longer than you will.
Okay, I see the wisdom in that. Discipline over instant gratification. Long-term vision over short-term gains.
Exactly. And speaking of long-term thinking, did you catch that part about the 300-year plan?
300 years. Isn't that like longer than America's even been a country?
It is. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? We're so used to thinking in terms of quarters or maybe 5-year plans if we're feeling ambitious. But these guys, they're playing a whole different game.
It's like they're looking at a totally different timeline. While we're worrying about our next Instagram post, they're planning for centuries of growth and innovation.
And I think that's a big part of what it takes to create something that truly lasts. It's about breaking free from that short-term mindset and asking yourself, what impact do I want to have on the world?
What do I want to leave behind? It's about building something bigger than yourself, something that outlives you.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing is, building that kind of legacy, it doesn't require winning the lottery or inheriting a fortune.
It's about making conscious choices, day in and day out, that align with that long-term vision.
It's about prioritizing those things that truly matter. Your values, your relationships, your contribution to the world.
It's about planting those metaphorical trees, even if you won't be around to enjoy their shade. It's about trusting that the knowledge and the values you cultivate today will continue to grow and benefit generations to come.
And that, listener name, is the essence of true generational wealth. It's about more than just money. It's about making a lasting, positive impact on the world.
Wow, that's a powerful thought to end on. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from tangible assets like real estate and businesses to those less tangible but equally important aspects like mentorship and building a legacy that goes beyond just the dollars and cents.
It's been a fascinating exploration of how to not just build wealth, but how to make it meaningful, how to make it last.
So listener name, as you continue on your own wealth-building journey, remember, it's not about getting rich quick. It's about making choices that align with your values, investing in yourself and those around you, and playing the long game.
It's about leaving the world a better place than you found it.
Until next time, keep asking those big questions and keep diving deep.
That's it for today's episode of Wealth Hustle 247. Be sure to follow, like, comment, and share with others. Keep pushing toward your goals, and we'll see you in the next episode.